Hey everyone.
Hey guys, welcome to Obscure MCU. With Thunderbolts releasing worldwide next week, I wanted to take the opportunity to give a full recap of every team member, explaining who they are, their history, and exactly where they are right before the events of the movie. So, you're all caught up and ready to watch when it drops. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it, starting with Yelena Belova. Yelena Belova was born in the Soviet Union in 1989. At just 3 years old, director Dreykov, the overseer of the Red Room, handpicked her to play a part in a deep cover operation in America. She was placed with parents Alexei Shostakov and Melina Vostokov, and her big sister Natasha Romanoff, and moved to Ohio. To Yelena, it felt like a normal American childhood. She had no idea it was artificial and a Soviet cover. That happy life ended for her abruptly when their cover was blown and were in pursuit by SHIELD and local police. Yelena and Natasha were ripped from the only family they'd ever known and hauled back to the Red Room. There, for years, Yelena endured brutal training, injections of psychostimulators, and other forms of psychological conditioning, and was instilled with no fear and zero empathy for her targets, and was relentless in hand-to-hand combat. Her own unique identity had been systematically erased. In 2016, everything changed. Yelena was dispatched with a team of widows to retrieve red dust, the only known agent capable of neutralizing Dreykov's mind control serum. They tracked it to an ex-widow who had escaped the Red Room years earlier. The ex-widow smashed the vial of dust against Yelena's face, and in an instant, the layers of programming began to fade. With her mind finally restored, Yelena ripped out the tracking chip in her leg and vanished. She would reunite with her former sister Natasha, who recently went on the run after violating the Sokovia Accords, and together they broke their former father out of prison and worked and teamed up with Melina, who was also their former mother while undercover in the States, to face Dreykov, take down the Red Room, and free all the other women being mind-controlled from the Red Room. Yelena would then go on a mission for the next 2 years to track down all the remaining widows and free them from the mind control. In 2018, while still on a mission of freeing one of her sisters, she became a casualty of the blip, only to rematerialize 5 years later. And she learned that her sister Natasha died in the process. Yelena would eventually meet Valentina Allegra and worked for her on various assassination missions and target operations. And one day, while visiting Natasha's grave, she was approached by Val, who gave Yelena her next assignment, Clint Barton, claiming that he was responsible for Romanoff's death. Mistaking Clint Barton for the culprit, she traveled to New York to kill him. She was interrupted by Kate Bishop, but would finally manage to get Clint alone. He managed to convince her of the truth of what really happened and give her closure about her sister's death. Based on trailers, it seems as though Yelena has continued to take on contract missions for Valentina, despite being misled about Clint. And we pick up with her on such a mission. Next up is Alexei Shostakov, better known as the Red Guardian, Russia's very own super soldier. A proud citizen of the Soviet Union, Alexei was recruited into the Armed Forces' secret super soldier program in an effort to replicate what the Americans had accomplished during World War II. The results were a success. He gained superhuman strength, speed, and stamina, completed every mission with distinction, and became a propaganda icon, much like Steve Rogers in his early days as Captain America. As the Red Guardian, Alexei rose to become Director Dreykov's protege and right-hand man, until the USSR dissolved in 1991, and he lost both his uniform and his purpose. In 1992, Dreykov reassigned him to a quieter mission: infiltrate SHIELD's North Institute in Ohio, alongside Melina Vostokov and their daughters, Natasha and 3-year-old Yelena. Over 3 years under deep cover, genuine bonds formed with his fake family. But in 1995, his cover was blown, and he was forced to flee. Betrayed by Dreykov's false promises of glory, Alexei was incarcerated in Russia's 7th Circle prison, left to rot for decades. It wasn't until 2016 that Natasha and Yelena stormed the facility and broke him out. He then joined them, and Melina, in toppling Dreykov and dismantling the Red Room, helping to free every remaining widow under its control. Sometime between those events and 2027, which is the current year in the MCU timeline, Alexei resurfaces in America of all places, working as a limo driver with his own branded service. He likely made the move during the blip, when immigration rules for former KGB agents may have been much less strict, since half the population was gone. Next up is John Walker, now operating under the codename U.S. Agent. John Walker grew up in Custer's Grove, Georgia, where he was the star quarterback of his high school football team. A few years after graduation, he and his best friend, Lamar Hoskins, enlisted in the U.S. Army. Walker's tours in Afghanistan earned him 3 Medals of Honor, an unprecedented feat in American military history. To the public, he was a courageous soldier, but he and Lamar both agreed those were the darkest days of their lives, haunted by orders they never wanted to follow. In the wake of the blip and Steve Rogers' retirement, the U.S. government and the Global Repatriation Council needed a new symbol. And since Sam Wilson donated Captain America's shield to the Smithsonian, they chose Walker for his skills and military reputation. In a new star-spangled suit and armed with the shield, Walker was unveiled on live television. And overnight, he was doing press junkets, Capitol Hill briefings, and celebrity appearances. Walker and Lamar were soon shadowing Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson's investigation into the Flag Smashers. Their pursuit led to Zemo's prison escape and Walker's discovery of a vial of super soldier serum. Under mounting pressure and humiliated by a crushing defeat at the hands of the highly skilled Dora Milaje, Walker injected himself with the serum he found. Now physically enhanced and desperate to take down the Flag Smashers, he watched in horror as Lamar was brutally killed before his eyes. Walker hunted down the wrong suspect and beat him to death using the shield, with the world watching. Sam and Bucky tracked Walker to an abandoned warehouse, forced him to relinquish the shield, and left him unconscious on the floor. When he returned to Washington, the Senate stripped him of his title and military rank in a humiliating Capitol hearing. At his lowest, he was approached by Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, the same woman who sent Yelena after Hawkeye, who offered him a blank slate and a new, black uniform. Adopting the moniker U.S. Agent, he now answers to Valentina's shadowy agendas. And that's where we find John Walker at the start of Thunderbolts, years after his brief run as Captain America. Next on the lineup is Ava Starr, also known as Ghost. Ava's story started with her father, Elias Starr. He was a disgraced scientist, formerly employed by S.H.I.E.L.D. Elias was once a colleague of the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym, but Hank kicked him out of the quantum program for his reckless methods. Driven by ego and resentment, Elias continued his experiments in secret, hoping to create his own quantum tunnel and upstage Pym. Ava was just a little girl living with her parents in Argentina, where her father was running these unsanctioned experiments. And then, disaster struck. In the middle of a test, something went wrong. The tunnel destabilized. As Elias screamed for his wife and daughter to get out, the entire lab exploded. Both Elias and his wife, Catherine, were killed. Ava survived, but she was never the same. The explosion altered her on a molecular level. Her body became unstable, phasing in and out of physical space. She couldn't stay solid for more than a few seconds at a time. And worst of all, the condition caused constant pain. But she wasn't completely alone. Bill Foster, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and old friend of Hank Pym, found Ava after the explosion. He took her in, built a quantum chamber to help stabilize her, and raised her like a daughter. But while Bill wanted to heal her, S.H.I.E.L.D. had other plans. They saw Ava as a weapon. They recruited her, gave her the ghost suit, and trained her to kill. The suit let her control her phasing, letting her slip through walls, become invisible, and strike without warning. And so, Ava became Ghost, a silent assassin who completed mission after mission, eliminating targets and disappearing before anyone even knew she was there. S.H.I.E.L.D. promised her a cure, but they lied. They had no intention of fixing her. Then, S.H.I.E.L.D. was exposed as Hydra, and Ava was left alone again. Her condition got worse, and the quantum chamber couldn't hold her together forever. Soon after, Bill came back into her life, and together, they came up with one last plan: to hijack Hank Pym's new quantum research and extract quantum energy from Janet Van Dyne. That energy could stabilize Ava's condition permanently. In the end, when Hank rescued Janet, she returned with new quantum abilities and helps heal Ava with a single touch, temporarily stabilizing her condition. For the first time in years, Ava's pain fades. She disappears with Bill Foster, seemingly to live in peace. But it didn't last. Shortly after, the Pyms and Scott went back to gather more energy for Ava. At that very moment across the globe, Thor didn't go for the head, and the only people who could help Ava vanished. It's likely she was blip too, since without the Pyms, she might not have survived the next 5 years. But we'll probably get confirmation in Thunderbolts, because now she's back. And it seems that she answers to Valentina, so there's a chance she could be working for Val in exchange for a cure to help stabilize her condition. The next character in the roster is Taskmaster. The MCU's adaptation of this character is arguably the biggest divergence from the comics across the entire franchise, so there's always the possibility the true Taskmaster many fans are more familiar with may still make his debut one day, much like Trevor Slattery in The Mandarin. Anyways, this Taskmaster's story was actually first alluded to back in the first Avengers movie, when Natasha lures Loki into revealing his plan. Unlike the other Black Widows, Antonia Dreykov wasn't raised in the Red Room from the start. She was the daughter of General Dreykov, the man behind the entire Black Widow program. She lived a relatively normal life in Budapest, attending school and staying close to her father. That all ended violently during the Budapest operation, when Natasha Romanoff tried to assassinate Dreykov by bombing his office. Antonia was caught in the blast, disfigured and presumed dead. But she survived. To keep her alive, Dreykov implanted a control chip in her neck, cutting off her autonomy and emotions. He weaponized her pain and turned her into his ultimate tool. The chip gave him full control through intense training and surveillance of Avengers combat footage. Scarred and masked to hide her identity, she was reborn as Taskmaster, the Red Room's elite enforcer. She could mimic anyone she watched, and with the benefit of the Avengers' recent fight at a German airport, she now had the skills of Black Panther, Hawkeye, Captain America, even Natasha herself. When the Red Room was finally taken down, Natasha managed to free Antonia from mind control using the red dust, restoring her autonomy. Since then, it's unclear what she's been up to. But like several others, it seems she was recruited by Valentina to carry out covert missions too. Last, and certainly not least, is Bucky Barnes, formerly known as the Winter Soldier. I'm sure most of you know his story by now, and if you want a deeper dive into his powers and history, check out my full video on that. But here's the quick version. Bucky was born in 1917, became best friends with Steve Rogers, and fought alongside him during World War II. On a mission gone wrong, he fell from a train but survived. Bucky was then captured, tortured, and brainwashed. Hydra turned him into their top assassin, the Winter Soldier, equipped with a prosthetic metal arm and sent on covert missions, and carried out countless assassinations for decades. Eventually, Steve helped break through the conditioning and reminded him of who he was. After going into hiding for a few years, Bucky was framed for the UN bombing that kicked off the Avengers Civil War. After all this, he was taken in by the Wakandans, who freed him from Hydra's control. He would fight alongside the Avengers and help to save the universe, was pardoned for his actions under Hydra's control, and later helped Sam Wilson take on the mantle of Captain America. And now? He's running for Congress, but we'll see how long that lasts. Before I wrap it up, I also want to address a few interesting points and a few moving pieces that may be setting us up for Thunderbolts. Starting with this mysterious woman Valentina, who's popped up in many of these characters' journeys. Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is the current director of the CIA, and she's been quietly making moves in the shadows. She recruited John Walker after he was stripped of the Captain America title, and later approached Yelena Belova, pushing her toward vengeance under the guise of a mission, possibly to wipe the original Avengers off the board, leaving the world without heroes so she can bring out her own. And during rising tensions between the US and Wakanda over vibranium, she put her ex-husband Everett Ross on the case to set him up and have him arrested. And now that it's been revealed, it was Val who bought Avengers Tower. And in the Thunderbolts trailer, we see her speaking before Congress, declaring that
the Avengers are not coming.
So, what's her real agenda? There are signs she could be involved with the mysterious Bob character from the trailers. I'm sure many of us have put the pieces together by now, but it seems she wants to be the one in control of Earth's mightiest heroes. Whatever the case, her story is just getting started. Which of these characters are you most excited to see more of in Thunderbolts? And will you be watching it opening weekend?
Why, you got someplace to be?
Let me know in the comments. And quick shout out to my patrons Sabri and Jake Shelton. You guys are the best. If you want to support me and help the channel grow, get early access to videos right after I finish editing them, and have your suggestions turned into videos much sooner. Please consider donating. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos coming soon. Thanks for watching.
Feel fulfilled?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so full. So filled.